that note, I'm going to also pass the floor over to Luc Mougeot from the IDRC, who has been critical in supporting the QE program for quite a while and is going to give us a talk on the QE programming overall so we can learn exactly what's been happening and some of the outcomes. Thanks, Luc.
Thank you. Do you hear me clearly?
Yes, very good.
Yes, okay, thank you. Because sometimes there's a misconnection of my headset with the laptop here. Thank you. Good day to everyone as well. Thank you very much, Professor Onita Basu, for kindly inviting me to this this seminar. I've been following Carleton University project with Mougeot University and University of Ghana and the Nelson Mandela Institute for quite a while since its beginning, and I've had the pleasure to attend other events, a few events, and on those occasions meet Carleton and visiting participants to your project. I would say that this project, this QES-AS project, stands out as one whose lead team really has rallied strong human and financial support from across faculties, departments, and other units of the university. And the sense I get from the project is that really Team Carleton has been coming together to offer as best an experience as possible to your visiting callers. So on behalf of IDRC, I'd really like to congratulate all those who have been involved in making this possible. Professor, the classic, of course, and yourself, Onita, and le regretté directeur de l'Institut des études africaines, Pius Adesanya as well, I would like to remember here. I'm going to, for context, if you can show the slide, the second slide. As I am no climate expert, for this event, I proposed to Anita that I would present a quick overview of what the projects in the QES-AS program have been achieving over 2018-2020. And this might help you to shed some perspective on the Carleton University's own experience in the program. I must admit I'm still going through the latest round of reports submitted by the participating Canadian universities to Universities Canada, who is managing the program. And these were submitted just a few months ago. So pandemic constraints aside, I suspect these new reports will not alter very much the range of results which we've been finding so far. I should also let you know that Universities Canada separately is tracking the gains accrued to individual scholars in terms of leadership skills, global competencies, career paths, networking, and community involvement. And these studies rely on self-assessments prior to mobility and after mobility as well. My presentation, my own presentation, is based on my review of 151 reports. This has been taking time, submitted by the Canadian universities, but also their project partners over 2018-2020. And I did review these reports with Georgia on my mind. What I had on my mind were 5 questions. And we're going to look at the findings for each of these 5 questions. If you want, Stephanie, please, the next slide. So the first question, which is one of importance to IDRC, you have these scholars moving back and forth between Canada and other countries. But the question was, how have scholar mobility projects being used by universities, participating universities, to support institutional development. In other words, what is the legacy to the institutions from this through flow of individual scholars? And we find that universities have been using the projects quite strategically to do two things. One has been to strengthen their research systems, and other has been to strengthen their academic programming. So looking to the pedagogy and the contents of curriculums, etc. On research systems, they've been doing this through 5 ways. One has been to extend the geographical reach of existing networks. For instance, we can think of the Hungry Cities Partnership at Wilfrid Laurier, or York University's Climate Justice Network, or Queen's University's network on maternal and child health. And this has included also extending the geography of the partnerships for research placements, placing students, like for Lakehead Universities in Ecuador or Wilfrid Laurier in Jamaica. The second way has been to co-design and implement research that is more interdisciplinary than it had been to date in scope on a particular development challenge. For instance, Ryerson University working with Universidad de Cartagena in Colombia on coastal groundwater. So this is the funnel effect, right? So you're bringing a wider span of disciplines to focus on a particular development challenge. The opposite also has happened, the inverted funnel effect, I call it, which is applying expertise from a specific field, disciplinary field, to a more diverse set of development challenges. And this has happened, for instance, in the University of Victoria project in legal studies, applying legal studies expertise to studying a range of issues. A fourth way has been to develop international network through building research capacity on a theme prioritized by the university partner in the low or middle income countries that are part of the project. Simon Fraser University, for instance, has worked with several universities in Asia on the issue of sustainable potable water, drinking water. And the last way has been, of course, to co-develop new undertakings, new research collaborations and applications. One example is the University of Toronto's new research grant applications on non-communicable diseases, University of Alberta on obstetric, fistula, York University on online teaching using gaming, etc. To strengthen their academic programming, also universities have been working in 5 different ways. One has been to build the training capacity of faculty in specific disciplines at LMIC, low and middle income country universities. The Université du Québec en Outaouais has done this in e-health, University of Waterloo in water resource management, University of Saskatchewan in nutrition, and University of Alberta in nursing. A second way has been to improve particular components of existing programs, training programs at foreign universities. Université de Moncton, Laval has introduced nutrition into population studies in Senegal. University of Waterloo on underground water. Lakehead University has been introducing cutting-edge surveying equipment and software in land management, etc. At Mougeot University. So I hope you're aware that Lakehead is working with Zuzu as well. And there have been conversations between the different teams. Anyway, a third way has been to co-develop novel training program in a specific sector For instance, Carleton University on, of course, climate change and sustainable development. University of New Brunswick on entrepreneurship in high-tech land management. A fourth way has been to promote inter-unit collaboration within Canadian universities. That's a very interesting outcome. Units within Canadian universities that had not collaborated closely until then have done so thanks to the requirements coming from LMIC partners in the context of the QES-AS. And this has happened at the University of Toronto, for instance. And the fifth way, of course, has been to test and establish partnerships with new organizations, right, for student placements, both in Canada and abroad. This has been done by the University of Ottawa, Waterloo, Toronto, Saskatchewan, and others. The next slide, please, Stephanie. So we'll get to question 2 here. The question was, in what ways have projects supported multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, or transdisciplinary approaches to research on development challenges? And of course, multidisciplinarity is more frequent than the other, but still we were able to find that at least in a third of the projects, inter and transdisciplinary approaches have been used. This has been done in 3 ways. One has been to integrate into a studies program on a particular theme, training, so importing training from a different but relevant field of expertise. For instance, University of Moncton has introduced food nutrition into agroforestry, okay, which didn't happen before. At Wilfrid Laurier University has introduced food system analysis into urban geography, right, at their partners universities. And University of Waterloo, environmental economics into hydrogeology for integrated water accounting at Chinese universities. University of New Brunswick have introduced business education into entrepreneurship at the University of Professional Studies in Akron. So very interesting symbiosis and synergies between different fields. The second way has been to promote collaboration across different faculties to address a common development challenge or enrich the curriculum of an existing training program. University of Regina has pulled together collaboration across natural engineering and social sciences, for instance. University of New Brunswick has pulled together faculties of engineering and management in their project. A third way has been to integrate training in multiple disciplines for a more comprehensive approach to a particular development challenge. Ryerson and Western University on water dynamics, for instance. And I think to a certain extent, Carleton has done that on climate change from various faculties. The next slide, please, Stephanie. So we're moving to question 3 here, and I was interested in seeing, what types of knowledge transfer have placements been enabling between universities and non-academic placement partners, where students or scholars have spent some time during their mobility program. And there is plenty of evidence on that. It's been a two-way street, really, between universities and non-academic organizations. The placement partners, for instance, have provided contextual intelligence, of course, personal contacts and other resources, logistical support. And these contributions in turn have led the researchers to adjust their agenda, their approaches, and their expectations, including through consultations with private sector actors, in the case of University of New Brunswick, or governmental instances, case of the University of Moncton. In turn, the researchers also have done things. I mean, they've produced resource guides, for instance, at Simon Fraser University on greenhouse heating. They've conducted foundational research for practical interventions. The University of Victoria on law reform and access to justice, as well as evaluations, in the case of the Carleton University. They've developed prototypes for experimentation. They've promoted the incorporation of collaborative research into the mandate, the policies of their host organizations, particularly NGOs. And there were NGOs that said, this has to become part of our policy to collaborate with universities and host researchers. We have so much to gain from that. And those testimonials come from the reports of the placement organizations. This is not the Canadian universities saying this. These are the placement partners submitting reports to Universities Canada on what has been their experience with the scholars. Researchers also have jointly developed management and monitoring tools and systems for their host organizations. So they really have helped build organizational capacity at their placement organizations. They also have lent scientific support to planning exercise. For instance, in the University of Regina project, an Indian postdoc provide this scientific support for the planning of climate change adaptation in energy and mining industries in the Canadian prairies that really, really seriously depend on secure supplies of water, right, for their activities. The next slide, please, Stephanie. So we're down to question 4 here, and the question is very simple. One of the objectives of the program, of course, is to hone the leadership skills of the scholars themselves. And the question is, well, how does this express itself? The so what question? Because universities have spent quite a lot of effort in terms of mounting and affording opportunities for scholars to develop those skills. So the way the scholars' achievements are expressing themselves on leadership are many. I mean, in terms of their career promotion at their home institution, new appointments to other institutions, the catalytic role they have played in new inter-institution partnerships. At the University of Regina, for instance, scholars have been seminal to enabling the university to establish new partnerships with universities in Ghana, Colombia, Mexico, the US, Thailand, India, and Cameroon. At Wilfrid Laurier University, the scholars were very helpful in enabling a partnership with the Mennonite Economic Development Associates in Jamaica. Researchers also have been securing new grants. They've been critical in developing course curriculum at their home institution or raising the research standing of their home institution. They've been acting as mentors for younger scholars. They've been leading initiatives involving collectives of peers, like organizing conferences or books. And I should underscore something very important just to close on that question, is that very often the LMIC scholars come from very young institutions. For these institutions, their scholars' success and their partnership with the Canadian University holds very high strategic value for the institution. They are putting a lot on the table by sending people abroad. It matters a lot for the institution's own development and credibility. The next slide, fifth, this is the last question. You must be very tired of listening to me. The fifth and last question. Well, I think we have to ask the question because it was not a rose garden throughout. What challenges have Canadian universities been facing in executing these projects, and how have they been coping with these challenges? There's quite a list here, okay? Just the numbers, it tells you that universities had to be really nimble and really creative. This is not straightforward. It never is. One of the issues has been to factor in delays and costs associated with scholars securing visas. Another has been to accommodate scholars' schedule to comply with the minimum stay requirements. I mean, you couldn't, bring someone for a week. It's not cost effective, and it's not very productive even for the institution that sends you the scholar. So, alternatives need to be found and be workable. So in many instances, the minimum stay was broken into shorter periods over a period of time. I mean, the early career, the availability of early career scholars was really an issue. In the end, we ended up having, of all those 30, 60 advanced scholars supported so far, about half of them are doctoral students, and a quarter are early career fellows, and another quarter, 25%, about postdoctoral, which is reasonable. But the university has made a lot of effort. And early career fellows are quite critical from an institutional standpoint because they are employees at their home institutions, right? They're not like freewheeling students who are here today and gone tomorrow. They are attached to their institution. So whatever the institution makes an investment into these people, it definitely has a multiplier effect when they go back to the institution. So Canadian universities have really been trying hard to accommodate in order to secure as many early career scholars as possible. Finding what means to extend a scholar's stay abroad, looking for other grants, scholarships to extend their stays when desirable. Addressing project management workload. I mean, that was part of the learning curve, right? Many universities discovered that kind of program is transactional. And some universities had not put as much effort into managing those transactions as they realized they should have, and made adjustments in the process. Recruiting sufficient numbers of good quality scholars. Again, the issue with early career, but also some universities does not respond. As a result, the Canadian University had to look for recruiting in other countries or in other categories of scholars to meet their quotas. Pre-mobility investment by scholars for a more productive stay abroad. Many universities discovered that it was really worth the incoming scholars from foreign countries to hone their English before coming in, or have early conversations with their prospective mentors before coming to Canada. As a result, the selection process at the LMIC universities really improved over time. Providing for mutually beneficial mentor-mentee relationships. So again, the pre-departure selection I was mentioning. Just before this one, I missed this one here, coping with cultural perception that an overseas assignment is a privilege. I mean, some countries, Canadian universities had to deal with that, and in fact, ensure that while the scholar would be abroad, that person would still continue to receive support from its her or his home institution. And of course, reviewing and adjusting project expectations. I mean, this is where COVID-19 comes in, right? In light of better information on the ever-changing context. I think I will end here. I'm slightly under my time, which is great. I thank you very much for your patience. I hope it was useful, and I'll be most happy to try to answer your questions. Thank you very much, Anita.
Yeah, thank you so much, Luc. I think we're recording the session. One of my plans is I'm gonna make sure we share this with all of the QE program leads across Canada, because I know myself selfishly, I almost like this has been so helpful for me to hear over like the overview of the project, all of the things that have been going on from your perspective, all of the connections that have been made. I mean, I think a lot of other QE programs will be really interested in listening to this part of the presentation, so we'll make sure to send that out.
Thank you. I'm just to footnote what you said in my presentation as well, is that you do have access to a public report from Universities Canada. This is on an annual basis, and you'll find more information on that.
Okay.
On the project. I think my presentation would complement in a way what you will find in that report. That report does feature some profiles, individual profiles. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. So if anyone, before I ask some questions, if anyone has a question or two for Luc, please feel free to put it in the chat box, or there's also a little hand feature that you can use. If you put up your hand, I can enable you to talk and add any comments or questions that you may have at that point. I think, but while people are waiting for people to put up their hand or put something in the chat box, I was wondering about how you felt all of the challenges with COVID went and have gone so far with the program across Canada.
There is information on that. I mean, we did as soon as spring 2020. We worked with Universities Canada for Universities Canada to canvass the Canadian universities and see how they were coping. And out of that survey came a number of measures which very diligently and very creatively universities were devising to cope. And essentially, I mean, there's been more of an emphasis on, of course, on using data already collected. The song you've heard throughout over those last 19 months, emphasizing writing and publishing, but also online, right? Many of the activities conducted across oceans online, as opposed to through physically moving between jurisdictions. Some projects have emphasized South-South. I mean, in some instances, mobility became acceptable between certain countries in the Global South, not to Canada or from Canada, but between countries in the Global South, as we would call them. And these were authorized. I mean, as long as they would follow the national health agency's protocols, of course. But it's been trying. It's been, and in fact, the program is ending. I mean, in terms of project activity on the ground in December. With the final reports expected from universities, not from the universities, but from Universities Canada to IDRC in June of next year. This said, I mean, I know that you have the West Africa wing on your program. This said, the West Africa IDRC IDRC's grant to the West Africa wing of QES-AS, which was approved just before the pandemic, still has until the end of 2024 to be implemented. So we have more of a margin of maneuver here to fall back on our feet and get, resume mobility with that grant. The current grant, we simply cannot extend it further. It was extended once or twice. We really have to close that grant. It's unfortunate. But some of the balance from that grant, it will be applied to activities under the West Africa. So actually the grant going to West Africa is smaller than the full amount of IDRC funds that will be available for mobility under the West Africa project.
Okay.
We've managed to do that.
That's good.
Don't ask me why.
Okay, I will. Actually, you've created a very nice transition point for me, because there's no additional questions in the chat box. But Nduka Otiono, who will be taking over from me as the PI for the QE West Africa project at Carleton, although I'll still happily be part of the team, is here to share a few words on the QE West program and Carleton's version of the QE West program. So Nduka, welcome you to the floor, and I'm looking forward to hearing about the QE West program.
Thank you very much, Onita, for putting this together. And then thank you, Luke, also for that presentation. It's so fascinating, in the continent, in the motherland Africa, where we very much appreciate the connection between the spiritual world and the material world. We could see that the transition has just happened naturally, like our ancestors had actually ordained that this transition was going to happen, even if we didn't rehearse or plan it. So I see that as a blessing, and we are never short of blessing or invoking blessings. So thank you so much. I also would like to seize this opportunity to thank Stephanie, who has been doing a fantastic job. People like Stephanie, coordinating things like this very often do it quietly, and sometimes, the spotlight is not on them. And yet, without them, we wouldn't stay as organized as we are, and things would fall apart. So for this particular day, I'd like to thank Onita and Stephanie. You've been up, and then of course, somebody who I haven't seen, I don't know whether he's in the house, Heloise. This has been a triumvirate that in the first instance made it possible for me to venture into applying for this. Because as some of you know, and Luke knows, organizing a project like this is not like, it's not a piece of cake. There are different communities and different groups, different colleagues that need to be coordinated. And so that can be very challenging. However, because of the example of Onita, it was possible for me to be encouraged to make this application. And then, of course, with the unparalleled support and expertise and knowledge and experience of Heloise. Having said that, I also would like to acknowledge that no matter how well we package these things, without the scholars, it's not going to be possible. And more so under the context of the pandemic. It will look like one of the worst times to have a project like this, because of, especially one that started prior to the pandemic, and they didn't build that into the plan. And how, the scholars have had to navigate very challenging times to get to this extent. And I did listen early on to the remarks by Professor Schwartz and then Professor Basu, Anita, about how the project has been put together and advanced so far, and the support that Carleton has continued to give, as Luke has also very kindly and generously acknowledged. So together, we have a community of very excited knowledge seekers, who are on some kind of divine intellectual chain. And then that chain is what we are trying to keep together. And we couldn't be lucky at Carleton to have this transition from this project coordinated piloted as a PI by Onita to ours. So with this opportunity, what we have tried to do is been also to advance, to find ways that we can synergize between what we have achieved and the resources on ground and how we are moving. So the special focus, I think I have permission, I'm able to share, right? Oh, I can also work from this screen. Okay, yeah. So let's say we have QS 2014 description. Oh, great. I was looking to see what he had. So before I get into this, let me just quickly share a few slides. That just gives, a bit more background. There are just about 3, slides there. Am I able to share? No, I don't have a sharing.
Yeah, you should be able to share. You see the sharing icon on the bottom there? No.
Let me see. Okay, good. Yes, I'm able to share. Let me quickly share this. I have just a few minutes to present. So what I'm going to do with the time that I have to present, just to give you a quick overview, just a summary of what we are up to with this. So this is a project that is West African targeted, right? And the scholars are meant to come from West Africa. And one of the things we thought about in conceptualizing this project was, what is it, and it's a women's project. What is it that is most important for women, academic, early career and late PhD professionals, academics in West Africa? And that took my mind back to something that Virginia Woolf had said. Some of you might be familiar with that book, A Room of One's Own. In modern times, a room of one's own will sound a bit like cliche. What is it about a room? We have moved from a time when women didn't really have a room in a house to a time where kids in a home, in some big homes, probably have a room to each one of them. And so, but the idea still remains in that metaphoric sense. And we thought about something that is going to ground this project in a way that our West African colleagues will be able to connect with it. And being somebody whose specialization is in oral literature myself, folklore and African cultural studies, I couldn't run away from the opportunity of also immersing ourselves into that background. And so Urineta Yorubutu, is from Hausa language, which is widely spoken in West Africa, from Nigeria, northern Nigeria, through many other parts of West Africa. It's one of the most widely spoken language. That's where it's from. And translated, it means her own room to write. And so this project is aimed at providing not that kind of physical room, but a metaphoric room in terms of the kind of space, that young and early career scholars in the sub-region West Africa could be provided to aid their careers, because these are people who deal with disproportionate kind of challenges, being mothers, wives, and so many other associated cultural baggages that make it so difficult to create space. And this is what we mean by the title of this project. I put emphasis on it so that our listeners and participants will understand this metaphor and how we organize it. And then also because we recognize these challenges, we thought about how best we can overcome some of the patriarchal bottlenecks, sometimes that shape, or very often that shapes access. And so we created a bottom-up recruitment approach, whereby the participants actually indicate interest, and we go through a process that goes up to approval through the higher authority. And we have started receiving applications already. Stephanie is keeping a tab on that. So with that, we remove that kind of screening, because you won't believe it. When we looked at this advertisement, and I sent this to some colleagues in West Africa, some professors, heads of departments or chairs of department, some of them didn't read in detail what this project was about. I had at least one full professor who is head of department nominate himself, say, okay, actually, I think I really, and I'm also a feminist, and he says he's a feminist. So I'm like, oh, that's great, you're a feminist and you're a professor, but, it looks like you are overqualified for what we're doing. So imagine a scenario where this is not bottom up and we didn't have this kind of, you're going to find some of these guys who are sitting at the top of the command chain, being the ones who determine, what we get. And then moving from that, oh, I didn't even have the full slide on. Okay, slideshow. Sorry about that. Okay. So, and then the award we run from, April from 2022 to 2024. And it would look like 2022 is safe in terms of the pandemic protocols, but that's not exactly the case right now because a whole lot of things are still very fluid about, full sessions and travels and all of that. And we're still negotiating that. So we have thought about April 2022 when we're going to start the virtual programming through Carleton and possible travel placement partners. And then by April 2023, we already award in-person programming at Carleton. And then we're also looking at it as conditional, if permissible, where travel will take place. And then April 2024, in-person programming fully. And then it's divided into full short-term, 35 to 60 days, and mid-term. And this is also not quite a very easy line for people to walk because they're trying to determine. When we put out initial call, we call it expression of interest. Some of the people who express interest then have moved on and have also gotten either fellowships or, some other things have happened, life has happened to them. However, I want to draw our attention because this is an opportunity for us to share as widely as possible. Those of you who are here already and who have been part of this project, the continuity is very essential because we are fortunate at Carleton to have back-to-back this project. So in other words, by this time next year, I don't know whether that's what Stephanie and I are going to agree on, but we would hope to have a seminar like this and have, this is going to be a culture. And I did see here, refer to that. So I am looking to a situation where this becomes a culture, and hopefully, because of the kind of capacity we are building with Carleton, it should be possible to continue to win some of these scholarship grants. And so we want to use this opportunity to call on our participants, the scholars. I know this is not, you're not all from West Africa, but, knowing that you're from different parts of the continent. Some of us from West Africa like to feel very cool about West Africa. We think it's a hub, of the continent. And if you look at West Africa in its location, there's something, you think about Central Africa as being central, but look again at that map of Africa. There's something unique about that location of West Africa. There used to be a joke that if you look at map of Africa like a gun, and it has this shape that goes this way. And so if the nozzle is on this side, that the trigger is on West Africa. So Odita has shared the link, and I am happy that she has shared the link. But there are a few more things I just got. That's a French translation. And if you're Francophone and you have Francophone friends, sometimes it might not be as fast as possible as we would like to in achieving some of the translations, but we are very conscious about this because indeed we have partners who are Francophone, who are French speaking and who offer that specialization. So what I would do very quickly to round up is to just take us a bit to this. Sorry, let me get off this slide, and then I will just call the other slide. So I can show you, even if we have full access to, the slides, to the website, giving you a bit of insight into what the website is. It's been launched, and I would appreciate it if you could share it very widely. It's already been pointed out in the chat section, and I would love to take questions afterwards about that. But I would just like to show you a bit of this website. So this is what it looks. This is our homepage. And if we go through this, from the West Africa, we have the full description. And if we go further through this, and then we go into our own specific project, so we have the Francophone and we have the apply button. But there are a few things that you want to note with regard to this. I'll just quickly show our governing committee. So this is our governing committee, and here is Heloise and Don, myself, our project coordinator. And down here, you will see this woman who is also here. You know, this is Onita, of course. And so you can see that it is strategic. You know, the Carleton faculty, some of them may be familiar with, like Doris. And then we have assembled an amazing team. And then there are also partners. And these are partners, senior gender. This is Gisele. And their profiles are here. We have Aisha, who is in Sierra Leone. And then we have Joanne. But also, more importantly, we have these other partners as well, who are very highly located in the community and working in West Africa. So we have Andrea Pierce, we have Sambi. This is from Afro-Canadian Chamber of Commerce, and then Research and Scientific Development Manager at Ames. And then, of course, Scott Walker, who is the Director of Code. And then one more thing I just wanted to point out is this with regard to our eligibility. So we also have this, you know, many of you already in the project are familiar with this, but we are actually hoping that we can attract, because this is now, you know, more focused on women and in West Africa. And we're looking to the possibility of assembling a team that is going to benefit from this expertise that we have at Carleton, and then also key into the community. So we are actually paying close attention to extending the community of the incoming scholars with the alumni scholars. I think, for want of a better word, that's what I want to call it. This is so close at our heart, and I'm working very closely with Stephanie and Onita, who are already managing this ongoing project to ensure that we build that bond. I think that will be the greatest asset of this. Research is not complete if we are not networking. And very often we can feel so isolated, so overwhelmed, and you're looking for the right person. So I would also hope that along the line, we'll probably build, you know, some kind of database, you know, where maybe we will unite the various cohorts in a way that they can also be a listserv, an email listserv. This is being done by the Carnegie African Diaspora Fellowship. But in order to do that, I think it is important that we have people from the outgoing cohort or the present cohort who would lead, because you are already there. You know, so we would like to see some of you volunteer, something that you can organize in association with us at Carleton, and not us at Carleton actually building it. So I want to see you take responsibility with that connection, with that cohort, with that community of our alumni, and then find ways and we'll continue to participate so that long after you have left this project, that connection will remain there. You can look back and see the kind of linkages, you know, that you forged coming out from this. I think I'll just like to stop at this point, and then I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Nduka. That was great. I'm excited about the new program. I'm excited about also not being the PI for the new program, because it's a wonderful experience, but it's a lot of work.
Yeah, you can say that again. We're learning from you.
So I'm happy to be able to like take a step back and have you like really like, but of course it's connected, as you said. So, you know, I'm here and, you know, we're looking at those connections and building and platforming and, you know, just sort of maintaining that connection so that things go smoothly and everything like that. So if I don't know if there's any questions. If there's any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the chat box. This is a great platform. I hope that the attendees, oh, there's one. Let's just find it. It's Eloise, allowed to talk. Hi, Eloise, you're allowed to, I've put it so you can talk.
Hi, I just wanted to say that sometimes we don't know exactly what an outcome is, but I wanted to note that Onita is now, and I forget what the title is, Vice.
Associate Dean. Yeah.
Associate Dean of the Faculty for Postgraduate Affairs. And I'm sure
that's wonderful.
Institutionally, that Onita is taking with her an incredibly rich experience of what it means to manage international postgraduate development and professional development. So Luke, just add that to your book of outcomes. When I was at IDRC, we used to say, oh gosh, my research partner's just become the Minister of Science. What do I do now? And I just want to say, oh gosh, our PI has just become the Dean of the Faculty of Postgraduate Affairs. And I think takes with her an incredible, richness that I don't think would have been there if we hadn't had the QES. And to all the people who've participated. Yeah.
Thanks
you very much.
Thanks, Eloise. Yeah. All right.
So,
and she's
Anita,
right. Yeah. Yes, go ahead.
I think just before we quit, may I just say, I would like to pose a challenge, if it's okay, to the participants who are here, the attendees. I would like to see at least one of you or two of you, take up the challenge that I posed about organizing an alumni network, from this. But if you're not ready now, that's fine. You can email Stephanie and Onita later afterwards to indicate that we want to see you assume that leadership. Sometimes it can be scary, like, oh, how am I going to do this? But you're going to get the kind of support from us that is going to facilitate that. So let's keep hoping that you're going to make this happen. I really would love to see an alumni network from this going from year to year that allows us to sustain the benefits of this project.
Great. All right. Thanks so much, Nduka. I think on that note, we're going to close out our inaugural QE Seminar Series that we started this year. And that we're going to, yes, Eric wants to start his postdoc application next year. And as we know, we're continuing through the QE West. And so just from Luke's comments about, continuity and integration and creating those connections, our goal here at Carleton is that this was our first inaugural QE Seminar Series event, and that we're going to make it into an annual event, and it will always be a call out to all of the QE programs, so that we can kind of create some connectivity and see where everything is moving. And with that, thank everyone for participating so much. And I look forward to hearing new talks next year at our second annual QE seminar event. Thank you so much, and we'll sign off now. Thanks.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations.
There we go.